Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Ogie. I am the pastor of Cutler Bay Worship Center right here in beautiful Cutler Bay, and this is chapter 30 of the book of Proverbs. We've got a new writer tonight. This one says the sayings of Agur. Sayings of Agur, son of Jakah, contain this message. And so, a different writer, not Solomon. So let's start in verse 1 from the New Living Translation in chapter 30 of the book of Proverbs. I am weary, O God. I am weary and worn out, O God. I am too stupid to be human. Agur needs a little self-confidence here. I lack common sense. I have not mastered human wisdom, nor do I know the Holy One. So this is interesting. He's starting off pretty harsh on himself, but actually sometimes it can be a really good thing to just kind of take stock of who we are, where we're at, what we're dealing with, and what we're going through, right? So, I mean, he's saying, like, I'm too stupid to be human. Maybe that's a little harsh, but what he's saying is, man, I'm struggling with common sense. Like, I'm struggling with knowing what to do. I've not mastered human wisdom. That's not a bad thing to be saying at the end of a book of wisdom, that we still need wisdom. We still need to seek wisdom, and that's been one of the big focuses of this book so far, isn't it? That we need to be continually seeking wisdom. This is not something that ends at the end of day 1 or day even 30, right? Or day 31 or halfway through our life or 3/4 of the way through our life. Seeking after wisdom is going to be something that we're doing for the rest of our lives if we're truly in tune with where we are supposed to be going. And so this is not necessarily getting down on himself as much as it is recognizing where he's at and what he's dealing with. I'm too stupid to be human. I lack common sense. I have not mastered human wisdom, nor do I know the Holy One. I mean, thinking we can all say, as much as we know God, there's so much more to know. Sorry, my eye is not happy right now. Verse 4, who put... Something's ringing on my phone. Oh, no. That's funny. Sorry. Verse 4. Who but God goes up to heaven and comes back down? Who holds the wind in his fists? Who wraps up the oceans in his cloak? Who has created the whole wide world? What is his name and his son's name? Tell me if you know. Interesting that he says, what is his name and what is his son's name, right? This is Old Testament. This is not, Jesus Christ has not been on the scene yet. And so, but yet he says this, what is his name? What is his son's name? Verse 5, every word of God proves true. He is a shield to all who come to him for protection. Do not add to his words, or he may rebuke you and expose you as a liar. Verse 7, oh God, I beg 2 favors from you. I think it's my family calling. It's my dad's birthday today, and I think they're all together and calling. So we're going to get through this real quick, okay? Verse 5. Let me just say, just give me a minute. All right, verse 7 of the book of Proverbs. Man, my eye is really... This is a good video so far. Verse 7, oh God, I beg 2 favors from you. Let me have them before I die. First, help me never tell a lie. That's a good one. Second, give me neither poverty nor riches. Give me just enough to satisfy my needs. For if I grow rich, I may deny you and say, who is the Lord? And if I am too poor, I may steal and thus insult God's holy name. So that's not a bad thing there, right? You know, give me neither poverty nor riches. Paul says in the New Testament, like, I've learned to be content with and without. I've had plenty and I've had little. And I've learned to be content in both of those situations because, I mean, that's it, right? Money is not what makes us content. We can be content with much and we can be content without much. So instead of worrying whether money is going to cause you to be corrupt, seek after not being corrupt, and then whether you have money or not, you won't be. Guaranteed. All right. Verse 10, never slander a worker to the employer, or the person will curse you, and you will pay for it. Some people curse their father and do not thank their mother. They are pure in their own eyes, but they are filthy and unwashed. They look proudly around, casting disdained glances. They have teeth like swords and fangs like knives. They devour the poor from the earth and the needy from among humanity. The leech has 2 suckers that cry out, more, more. There are 3 things that are never satisfied. No, 4 that never say enough: the grave, the barren womb, the thirsty desert, the blazing fire. The eye that mocks the father and despises a mother's instruction will be plucked out by ravens of the valley and eaten by vultures. Dangerous. There are 3 things that amaze me. No, 4 things that I just don't understand. How an eagle glides through the sky, how a snake slithers on a rock, how a ship navigates the sea, and how when a man loves a woman. Verse 20, an adulterous woman consumes a man, then wipes her mouth and says, what's wrong with that? There are 3 things that make the earth tremble. No, 4 it cannot endure. A slave who becomes a king, an overbearing fool who prospers, a bitter woman who finally gets a husband, and a servant girl who supplants her mistress. So I'm going to stop here for a second, because reading through the Bible, you have to understand there are things that are just different from the time it was written. We have to be reading things in context, and there are going to be things that from the surface, if you just read what is there without studying it, can really throw you off. Okay, so I read this verse 22, 3 things, verse 21 and 22, there are 3 things that make the earth tremble. No, 4 that the earth cannot endure. And the first one is a slave who becomes a king. Well, I personally am 101,000% against slavery. Humanity, for slavery against any scenario, right? I mean, in this reality right now that we are living in, the most common representation of slavery would be what we've experienced in America, where African Americans were enslaved, and it was a white person versus black person scenario. And I'm just 1,000% against that. It's just not how God created humanity to be. All right. Now, our understanding of slavery today is different than maybe what this verse is talking about. Okay. The word here, slave, is really translated most often as servant or bond servant. And it was really somebody who was so poor that they themselves chose to give themselves into the servitude of someone else because they couldn't afford to live. And so they were like, you know what? I'll serve you, and I'll serve your household. Take me in, and I'll work so that I can live, because I can't live any other way. All right. And so that word was used, of the 800 times it's used 740 some of those times as servant. In the King James Version, this is actually used servant, not slave. And so we have to study these things. And I haven't studied this enough. I'm just kind of scratching the surface of it, but I want to dig into it, because there's value in reading what the Word of God says. And so I want to know what that means, right? And I don't want to just take it for face value and then either be turned off by it or believe something that God never intended us to believe. We can't just take the Word of God and make it fit our scenario. And we can't just take the Word of God and make it fit our interpretation. Okay? The Word of God is the Word of God, and it is truth. All right? Jumping back in at verse 24. There are 4 things on earth that are small, but unusually wise. Ants. They aren't strong, but they store up food all summer. Hyraxes, which I think another translation says stone badger. They aren't powerful, but they make their homes among the rocks. Locusts, they have no king, but they march in formation. Get this. I was just reading the other day. There was a swarm of locusts, 50,000 of them or something like that. I think it was back in the 80s or 90s, that made it all the way from Africa to the Caribbean. Like a swarm of locusts went across the ocean. That's insane. Verse 28, lizards, they are easy to catch, but they're found even in kings' palaces. Verse 29, there are 3 things that walk with stately stride. No, 4 that strut about. The lion, king of animals who won't turn aside for anything. The strutting rooster, the male goat, and a king as he leads his army. If you have been a fool by being proud or plotting evil, cover your mouth in shame. As the beating of cream yields butter and striking the nose causes bleeding, so stirring up anger causes quarrels. And isn't that the truth? My 6-year-old daughter was punched in the face by a cat the other day, and she's got a tooth in the front here that is almost about to come out. And man, that cat just socked her one, and it started bleeding a little bit. So the striking of the nose or the striking of the tooth by a cat causes bleeding, and it's the same that stirring up anger causes quarrels. that's my take on chapter 30 of the book of Proverbs today. Been an interesting one tonight. Hey, I hope you're having a great night. Hope you have a great day today, and I will see you tomorrow. Now, tomorrow's the 1st of July, but I think I'm going to do maybe chapter 31 tomorrow, and maybe chapter 1, because of course we started on the 3rd of June, so we're a couple chapters behind, and I do want to get through chapter 31 as well, so we'll see what goes on tomorrow, but have a great